Welcome to the second video in Module 2 of Legal Research for Everyone. This video will show you how a code is organized. Let me start out with a caveat. Every state is different, but basically codes are organized in a logical outline form. Each state might use a different numbering system or choose different topics to organize around, but they all use some sort of outline method. This video will use the California codes to show you how ours are organized, and this is pretty much the same as the federal method of organization, so I won't waste time showing you both. One thing I will be doing, however, is introducing you to one of the 4 approaches to legal research while we talk about the code organization. Now, do you remember the 4 approaches to research? Well, the first was the I already have a citation approach, and we don't already have a citation, so that's not it. The second is the index approach, and we're not using the index yet. That's in a later video. The third is the table of contents approach, and you can probably guess this is the one that I'm going to show you here. And the final method is the computer word search approach, and obviously we're not using a computer. So in order to use the table of contents research method, we need to have a research problem. What is it we're looking for? So imagine the following. Your great-aunt Birgit just died. In her will, she left her $10 million estate in trust to her pet cats who survive her. At the time of her death, she had only one pet cat, Pickles. When Pickles dies, the remainder of the trust goes to the Palm Springs Animal Shelter. Now, you're her only surviving relative, so if her will is invalid, you stand to inherit her entire estate. So naturally, you're kind of curious to find out whether your aunt lacked the mental capacity to make a valid will and what the legal effect of that would be. So do you remember this list of codes? One way to look at this is that it is the top level of a table of contents of the California codes. It's kind of like a list of chapters in a book. If you know enough about the law and enough terminology, you probably can determine that the best place to look is the probate code. And this illustrates the big weakness of the table of contents approach. If you don't know anything, how would you know how to drill down through a topic-oriented table of contents? Maybe you don't know what probate is. You would already be stuck at the first level of the table of contents. But assuming you do know that you want to look at the probate code, you go to the shelf, and this is what you see. As you can see, the probate code as it is published by West fills 10 volumes. One thing I want you to notice is the section number ranges on the spines of the books. If you were looking for, say, section 8105, you would look in the volume that says it contains sections 7000 to 9199. What we want to do, though, is look at the next level of the table of contents. And to find that, we'll open up the first volume, and we'll see the table of contents to this code. I will be using a PDF that I made to demonstrate this. However, because the table of contents is very long, I've skipped many pages, but have included enough to show you what it is like. So now I've gone to the first page of the table of contents in the probate code. You'll see at the top it says analysis, not table of contents. You know, lawyers, we like to have fancy words for everything. I suppose I could call this the analytical approach to legal research, but since everyone knows what a table of contents is, I prefer to go that way. If you look at the top of this page, you will see that the next level of the table of contents is very broad. It simply lists 13 divisions of the probate code. Now it says 11, but if you take a closer look, you'll see that 4.5 and 4.7 were added, so the total number of divisions is 13. Let's scroll our finger down those divisions and see if we can find one that might apply to our fact situation. The The first one you're going to run into that looks like it might be what you're interested in is Division 6, Wills in Intestate Succession. If you want to see the next level of the table of contents so that you can see more detail about Division 6, you would look down below. You can see where Division 1 and Division 2 start. Now if we were to turn the page, we would go on to Division 3 and Division 4 and so forth, but I'm just going to skip a number of pages and go straight to Division 6. So here we have Division 6 and two more levels of the table of contents. As you can see, Division 6 has been organized into 4 parts. The only one of these parts that we're interested in is Part 1, Wills, so let's focus on that. Part 1 is further organized into chapters, and you can see them listed here. The next stage of the table of contents approach would be to examine the chapters and see which of these applies to your problem. Here you might say, I don't see anything about mental capacity, in which case we might be in the wrong place. But my guess is you want to look at general provisions, which is Chapter 1. Before we do that, take a look at Chapter 6. You'll notice that it's further organized into articles, 3 articles. When you get to the lowest level of the table of contents that you can get, that's when you find the sections or the actual language of the law. So here, Chapter 1, General Provisions, that's the lowest level we can get. And when we turn to that chapter, we're going to find the actual sections with the language of the law. Now we're going to leave the table of contents at the beginning of the probate code and go into the text to find what we're looking for. Here is Division 6, and you can see it recreates part of the table of contents for you. And then you find Chapter 1, and it lists the sections that are included in Chapter 1. Now this list of sections actually goes on to the next page. It's maybe 3 or 4 more sections, but to save time, I'm not going to do that page. So look at the list of sections. Section 6100 is persons who may make a will. To save some time, I'll tell you you have to be 18 and of sound mind to make a will. But the phrase sound mind doesn't really help us a lot. So let's keep looking. Section 6100.5. Persons not mentally competent to make a will, specified circumstances. Now that sounds exactly like what we mean and was obviously added. I say obviously because of the 0.5. Was obviously added to clarify a little bit of what was meant by sound mind. So next I'm going to turn to section 6100.5. Toward the bottom of this page is the beginning of section 6100.5. Don't be distracted by the material above it. That is some of the annotations from the previous section, and I will explain the annotations in the next video. Here you'll see the section number and the heading, persons not mentally competent to make a will, and you'll see paragraph A, an individual is not mentally competent to make a will if at the time of making the will either of the following is true. So what's important was Aunt Birgit's condition at the time she made the will. And then the section gives you 2 numbered paragraphs. You can see number 1 listed here, and then number 2 is on the following page. If either of the circumstances in paragraph 1 or paragraph 2 are true, then you might win your will contest against Aunt Birgit's will. Now here is the rest of the section. After we get past paragraph 2, the rest doesn't really apply to our situation. Following the section, you will see annotations, and it goes on for several pages. I am going to explain these in the next video. In the next video, we will look in more detail at those annotations following the section of the code.